Coming up this week, how do you feel about marijuana legalization? Also, we get your take on transparency in the federal government. This and much more to come. Hitting the streets, this is Outburst. Hello and welcome to Outburst. I'm Glenn McGuinness. Well, the federal government's plan to implement marijuana legalization by next year is going full steam ahead. And now they're saying it may happen before July 1st, 2018. So as we get closer to the legalization date, we get your take on the plan. Our question, how do you feel about marijuana legalization?
Well, I know the intentions are good, but it could take quite a while before they get everything under control. Yes, the intentions are really good. And yes, I have heard of people using it for various illnesses, and that has worked. And so, yeah, for those people I say yes, but it's going to take a lot of control. And so it could be rough in the beginning.
I think it should be decriminalized. Not so sure it should be legal.
Why not?
It's just kids, pretty much. Every kid in high school is going to be high, if they're not already high, you know. I don't think it should be illegal. I just don't think it should be. It should be a criminal. It should just not be legal. I don't think you should be able to buy it in stores. Never
in my life thought I would be for it, but have switched over to totally being for legalization. I'm originally from Vancouver, just visiting now, so I see the effects, and I think that legalizing it will make it less greedy for the dealers, I think. Make it less of a money-making scheme, and also maybe take away that forbidden fruit feeling of you know, young people taking it because it's against the law and trying to be cool.
I think it's a good idea because of the need for more money in the city of Toronto, and it's going to be handled by appropriate people, and I guess Bill Blair will get his act together in another year and give us the rules and regulations.
Okay, no concerns, and again, this is across Canada, this is federal. So.
I have a child, well, he's now 35, he's been in it a long time as a snowboarder. I accept it. It'll be regulating the driving and using drugs. That will be an issue. They'll have to really work carefully on that one.
I think it should be. I think it should never have been illegal to start with back in the 20s or whenever they've changed. The laws were set for different reasons than our health. You know, it was political. But no, I think if they're going to make something illegal, make alcohol illegal. I think there's a lot more harm done with alcohol than there would be with marijuana, and that's just, you know, that's from what I've been reading over the years and the facts that I've been studying about marijuana, and I think that sure it should be legal, but it's the powers to be that we have to convince, and I don't know. It seems like our Prime Minister is on board with that, and he sees through a lot of the political negativity of having marijuana legalized, and sure. Yeah.
I agree that it should be legalized. I think people want it, they're going to get it one way or another, and it prevents illegal buying of marijuana, that people should be able to get it for whatever their needs are. And people that use it recreationally are going to buy it one way or another anyway.
I'm very supportive of that. I think it's a long time coming. I think that it's a good way of developing revenue for the government, and it's avoiding criminal sanctions against people and ruining their lives, and recognition that it's something people are using, and why have it be illegal? Can regulate it better that way and keep it safe and keep it from young people. And
I think it's going to just cause a lot of trouble. 18 years of age is pretty young to start being able to start smoking marijuana. Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on it?
I think people that need it for medication should be able to have it for that. That is a tricky one. I think marijuana has been proven not to be helpful to anybody who has taken it, basically. So on that basis, I would think that it should not be legalized. I mean, we've learned that it's not good for anything or for anybody. So why legalize it?
I don't approve of it.
Can you expand on that at all?
Well, they say it damages young minds, and that's where pot is used first, I think, with young people.
I feel like prohibition hasn't been working, that it would be better for the system in general if it was regulated and taxed.
I think it has to be done. Even if you don't agree with it, it will end up helping our economy. So, and right now our economy is not doing good, so it's something that we can look forward to.
I have my concerns, actually. I'm not sure how they're going to keep people from driving impaired, or don't think that it's good for our young people. I absolutely believe it could be used medicinally, but not necessarily just all out for anybody's recreational use.
Kind of on the fence about it. I can see the validity of the gateway argument, but at the same time, I have seen the benefits of what medicinal marijuana can do for people. So I'm kind of on both sides of the fence on that one.
Way overdue. They should have it done already, because it's plugging up the courts. It's not even close to being as bad as cigarettes and alcohol, which is a joke. But yeah, that should be done. Way overdue.
I think I feel it's important, to take a positive side of this, not the negative ones. And if it is for medical reason, I definitely support.
The real core is that it's a spectacular plant made by God, and there's research where they have divided up the carbanoids like in 70 different sectors of amazing healing powers that cannot be denied, but they can be crushed by big pharma. And you want to believe in big pharma, welcome to hell, Earth. That's my opinion. I'm emotionally involved.
Which city in Ontario is also known as the Royal City? Guelph, Sudbury, or Windsor? Guelph, Sudbury, Windsor.
Windsor.
Windsor, I guess.
Windsor.
Windsor? I really don't know.
Windsor.
Guelph, Sudbury, or Windsor?
I'll say Windsor too.
Sudbury? Oh, I was gonna say Kingston, so Guelph.
It's Guelph.
Oh, okay.
The city of Guelph was named in 1827 by its founder, John Galt, to honor the British royal family. The Hanoverians were the descendants from the Guelphs, which were the ancestral family of George IV, thus the nickname, the Royal City. During the recent federal budget, one of its components was to subject Uber, the ride-sharing service, to the same HST and GST rules that apply to taxis. For the many Canadians that use this service, some disagree with the tax implementation, while others feel that Uber should be subject to the same tax rules as any other business. So we took the topic to you, our question. How do you feel about a government-imposed tax on Uber fares?
I don't know if I quite agree with that, because it is a private business, and because I don't know, do taxis and cabs, do they have? Okay, they do.
It is becoming a lot more popular though.
Yeah, but it's also a lot cheaper, and it's great for students, and that's mainly what I use, so it would help a lot.
I'm not really sure, but if the taxes are getting taxed, I guess the Uber guys might as well be too, right? Everybody gets their share. Everybody gets taxed.
Depends on how much the percentage is, and I guess where it goes. I mean, if it's not being taxed already, what's the holdup? Everything else is.
I don't know if I really have an opinion on that. I do feel like it needs to be monitored just with the taxi licensing and then Ubering, but right now they don't issue enough taxi licenses, so it's probably a good thing for there to be a little competition.
Yeah, it can have two sides to this thing. I think the government, as you know, is the biggest animal in the country. It's trying to raise some funds that it can use for good use, you know, to help the underprivileged in society, to do all this, you know, to make our roads look nice and all these things. So from that perspective, it would be wise for the government to get a fair share of some percentage from the Uber taxis. But on the other hand, the Uber taxis, on the Uber taxi side, it can be a cost that can also put them out of business. So it has to be well balanced. For me, it has to be done, but it doesn't have to be that punitive where it can, you know, make people go out of business and people are unemployed, they don't have food on the table and all that kind of thing.
You know, I probably can't give you a clear opinion on that one right now. It's obviously a pretty complex issue. I think it makes sense to some extent to regulate, because obviously the taxi market is one that's been hurt a lot by it, so I can respect why the conversation needs to be had, and we'll probably have to find a middle ground to some extent.
Ooh, actually, personally, I think that I would support that on Uber fares. Yes, I support the and free enterprise in the sense of Uber offers alternatives. However, that also means for those taxi companies and others who are under control that they're at a disadvantage. So yes, I would support some type of regulation in the form of taxation. Yes.
I think that's completely fair to the taxi drivers who have spent a lot of time and a lot of their own resources on obtaining licenses, on getting insurance so that their passengers remain safe. And I think Uber, in order to provide that same kind of service to passengers, of course should have to pay that tax.
Yeah, for me, I use it like 5 to 6 times a week at least. And for me, it cuts my fare in half, right? It actually makes, you know, things accessible for me as well as the Uber drivers that would start, you know, I mean, obviously I would not like that. But
yeah, like the reason that we use Uber is because it's a lot cheaper than taxis. So like we have to use, in London, the buses stop running at a certain time. So the time when we're getting back from work, we have to use that transportation. So having it cut the price in half, that's the reason that we would use it. So having it higher, if it was a higher price,
we would think more. I would not use it as much. No, I would use it only when it was, you know, integral to, you know, getting to where I need to be, right?
Yeah, even if it did make it more expensive, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because, you know, government treasury benefits me in the long run with services and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Well, it's probably fair because the cab drivers have to pay that tax as well, right? And it's not a level playing field, so it's fine. It's just going to increase the cost of Uber, and maybe I'll be less likely to take it as opposed to taking a cab. But then again, I like the convenience of Uber because you see it on your phone, and the app lets you select who you're riding with, as well as you can see how long it's going to take for them to get to you. And I find the customer service is better with the Uber drivers than the cab drivers.
Which Canadian city is also known as the Paris of the Prairies? Winnipeg, Saskatoon, or Regina?
Regina.
Saskatoon.
Winnipeg.
Regina.
Regina.
That would be Regina.
Regina.
Saskatoon.
The answer? Saskatoon.
Hooray!
It's a guess.
Saskatoon is known for its diverse and vibrant culture, which has earned it the nickname Paris of the Prairies. During the 2015 federal election, one of the promises made by the Trudeau Liberals was to be more transparent than the previous Harper government. Well, roughly a year and a half into their mandate, some feel the Liberals aren't living up to that pledge. One sticking point is the government's failure to implement changes to the access to information regime by the next election, as promised. So we took to the streets to get your take. Our question: how would you rate transparency in the federal government?
I think our new Prime Minister is a younger philosophy of life and gets into things more than, say, someone who's more conservative and bound by rules and regulations. But at the same time, our budgeting of our finances is an issue that the newer people will have to deal with.
I think he's really a bit too young.
hasn't had enough experience. How can you spend $30 billion a year more than what you bring in? See, we're of a generation where you only spent what you had. And when the country ends up having a deficit of, I guess, almost $500 billion, various issues like infrastructure, education, and everything else that goes with a good life isn't going to be able to be financed because half the money that they bring in is going to pay the interest on the deficit. So right now it looks like China's going to get richer. Where are we getting all this money from? It's got to be China.
I think they do listen. I don't know if we get the right answers. They give us the answers they think we want to hear sometimes. And it's maybe not the answer that we want, but you know what? On a global scale, I think we're pretty well off here in Canada, and I appreciate what we have and our infrastructure and the safety net that we do have, healthcare, and I think we're pretty lucky people, Canadians. So as far as that transparency question you have, I don't see it being a problem.
Well, I was led to believe when they got elected that they were going to be more transparent than what they have shown to be at this date. So yeah, I think that's a fair observation, is that they need to be more transparent, because that's what they ran their election campaign based on that promise. So they don't seem to be living up to that promise from what I can see.
I think with Canadian politics, it's so quiet and calm that people seem to forget the need for transparency. And, if the need's not there, if the public isn't requiring it, the government's just not going to do it on their own. So I think with this government, and surprisingly a Liberal government, I don't see the transparency there. I really don't. I really don't see anything. I don't see really anything happening to be transparent about, to be honest. Honestly, I think all governments right now in Western democracies are having a huge problem with transparency. So, no, they can do a whole lot better than they are, for sure.
I think 3 out of 10. Yeah, and what I did notice is that when Trudeau came into power, he had a little bit of an openness to being more transparent, and I actually appreciated that, because it got me a chance to see have a little bit more insight as to what his thinking was as being now Prime Minister and what his aspirations and goals were. But ever since that initial time, I don't feel that transparency is necessarily there, or it's opened up. I haven't really looked for it, but it doesn't seem to be reaching out to me either.
Well, I think it's pretty transparent. I mean, I think that, actually, you know what, I'm in favor of Trudeau, so there you go. So, I mean, I think that they're pretty transparent in what they're doing, and they're pretty upfront with everything that's happening.
I would love more transparency. I'm not the most politically inclined person you'll ever meet. I basically am a social media follower of politics, so what I do see online is pretty transparent, but you never really know if what you're getting is the real story. So it's kind of one of those harder to determine things for me, because I don't know if what I am getting is actual fact or just what somebody wants me to believe. So I guess more transparency could always be a beneficial thing for those of us who don't understand, but hard to say.
I think transparency, because I work for the federal government, so I think we normally post in our website, and I feel like it's quite good there. And public can go and see the comments without their names and everything. I feel it's good.
Well, I guess whatever they don't tell us, we'll never find out. But for what I see on the surface, I think they're pretty forthcoming.
I don't know. I'd say that the Liberals definitely could be a little bit more transparent right now. I do think that they gave the illusion that they were going to be trying their best with transparency, and I don't know if they lived up to that expectation, but I don't think the Conservatives did either. So overall, I think that all of the parties need to be a little bit more transparent.
It isn't as good as they promised. I wish it would be better.
Yes, the same.
Fairly good, although I understand that there's still issues around access to information, and so I think that it could be improved, but I don't find it as something that I'm particularly concerned about.
Affordable housing for many Canadians is a challenge. For some, providing food and shelter can be a struggle simply because they can't afford both. This has resulted in repeated calls for this country to come up with a plan to fix the problem. So we sent our cameras out with our final question. What are your recommendations for a national housing strategy?
The change has to come, so I think more and more people like what you're doing now, asking people questions, things that we don't often think about, making people aware of it, instead of going about our day-to-day life and ignoring the person on the street who's suffering, right?
I don't have a good one, but I saw something on the internet the other day. Some woman in Riverdale was setting up like a community of people to talk about communal living. So you buy a property together just because it's so expensive now. And I don't know, I think it's a good idea because we are kind of shut off from each other, so I don't think it's bad to kind of go back to being more of a community, so figuring out ways to live with each other as opposed to being so separate. I like the idea. She was talking about just how you go into buying a house together, so two families in one house, and just work away. I don't know. I mean, it's a good idea, I think. I don't know how it would really work, the ins and outs of everything, but I think it's a good idea.
Ontarians are very fortunate in the resources that are available to us, but if we look at other parts of our country, why aren't we extending the same kind of generosity and kindness to all human beings?
I don't know what the solution is because there just aren't a lot of available places, but for sure there should be better subsidies for the poor, and certainly the places that are there, they should be forced to keep them up because a lot of my patients were in deplorable housing and nothing got fixed for months or years.
That's really hard to say, but I think generally if they could look overall at the people's incomes and think about what kind of situations are available for people at their economic or financial abilities to pay. That's all I can think of offhand.
For instance, get some land and build some housing. Give these developers some incentive to build something, because right now they don't, because they can build but they charge the rents like there's no tomorrow. I'm very, very pleased with the habitats because they're really are very good. That's a very good program. But yeah, we have to have some land assigned for affordable housing. Yes, definitely.
The government doesn't seem to have the funds to build the housing themselves. They can't even really maintain Toronto housing here in Toronto properly. So I really think that they should do something, come to some sort of agreement with the condo developers that a portion goes to like affordable housing, like they did in Regent Park. That condominium they built at the end, a portion of that goes to affordable housing. I think that's like probably the biggest thing they could do right now. Also, people give subsidies to people maybe who are low income who might be able to afford, buying a small house. Give them some sort of huge tax break. But in the city, urban centers, definitely I think it falls on the shoulders of the city working with condo developers, the province working with condo developers, just to make sure that, out of the thousands of units they're building, that there's some put aside for affordable housing. I think that's the main thing that could be done right now.
Well, I think that the federal government should also step up to the plate and pour more money into housing. As I said before, it is a determinant of health, and there's so much lack of housing, and a lot of it too is lack of regulation on the kinds of people that are coming in and driving the prices of market up. In fact, to be honest with you, I think that is a total outrage. You've got all this dirty money coming in from China, right? These rich people from the society, which represses human rights and has a history of genocide of some people, coming here with their dirty money and inflating the prices of housing so that people can't afford it. That's absolutely wrong, and I think that has to change. But I do think the federal government has a part to play in that as well too.
Housing affordability is tough, and being a single girl myself, being able to afford a home for me as a student is impossible. So anything that could help those of us who maybe don't have that other person or that second income to supplement would be extremely beneficial to somebody like me. So,
take the tax from the Uber fare and put it towards the housing that the people really need, because there is quite a shortage as far as I know. I don't know all the numbers, but put it to the good use where that it needs to be put.
You see, these are big questions, you know. Decentralization, definitely. Utilization of abandoned resources would be number one. There's colonies all through. The colonies could be created in ghost towns, you know, all across the prairies here, you know, all across the prairies, you know, where you can still buy a house for $5,000. Sell stuff off the internet, you know. I mean, but the dream is here somewhere, you know, in some kind of a ridiculous, you know, $300,000 revamped warehouse, you know. But I think the real dream would be in an abandoned city, you know, because agriculture has changed, and you know they don't need the population density to run things. So.
Oh, that's a tough question. I think there's probably an opportunity to partner with Habitat for Humanity and generate some structure that way, and some extra building occupancy for people in need that way.
You know, I think it's needed because the cost of housing is just going crazy, especially in the major cities, and now it's even breaking out into the smaller cities in the rural areas. So. One, again, probably similar to the tax on Uber, the conversation needs to be had, and it's going to be a long one where you got to find a middle ground.
I think it's a major concern, and a national housing strategy would be, that's interesting of the thing. Childcare and housing are the two that I think are really important. Yes.
Which Canadian city is nicknamed the City of Champions? Edmonton, Montreal, or Vancouver?
Edmonton.
Vancouver.
I'd go for Vancouver.
Edmonton.
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 It's Edmonton.
Yay!
Good for you.
3.
Not bad.
Do I get to keep my citizenship?
On July 31st, 1987, a devastating tornado which killed 27 people hit the city of Edmonton. The day became known as Black Friday. Then Mayor Lawrence Decore cited the community's response to the tornado as evidence that Edmonton was a city of champions, which later became the city's official slogan. That's all for this episode of Outburst. Like what you see? Well, you can watch more full episodes on our website at www.cpac.ca, on our CPAC TV to go app, as well as our YouTube channel. You can also join the conversation via social media on Twitter and Instagram at CPAC_TV. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of all my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.